Someone downstairs checking. Was there somebody downstairs checking?
I was there until about 5 minutes ago.
Oh, thank you.
So he's called me to say he's going to be that.
Well, good evening, members, ladies and gentlemen. A very warm welcome here to Lichfield District Council's Planning Committee meeting. For those of you watching online, you're probably noticing that we do have slightly different surroundings. We're not in the council chamber, we are in the committee room this evening, and that is, we are planning that to be the future venue for all planning committee meetings here at Lichfield. So a very warm welcome to you all. And here we are at Lichfield District Council on the 27th of February 2023, and we have the agenda to go through. The first thing I need to say is that we do have apologies for absence. Item 1 on the agenda, members, you'll see is apologies for absence. And as far as I know, we've had apologies from Councillors Ray and Latham, and also Councillor Powell has informed us that he's going to be a little bit late arriving. So we expect Councillor Powell to arrive probably within the next half an hour. He's been held up in traffic. Do we have any other apologies for absence, please? Okay, thank you very much. Members, we now go to item 2 on the agenda, something which you're very familiar with, having been participating in these meetings for quite some time. Item 2 is declarations of interest. Do we have any such declarations, please? Councillor Salter. Councillor Salter.
Yes, thank you, good evening, Chair. I need to declare a personal interest in respect of the first of our applications this evening, 22/00242 FUL, and that's because my wife is the clerk to all parish council and presenting the parish council submission of objection. I'll withdraw from debate and vote.
Thank you very much indeed, Councillor Salter. Members, any other declarations of interest, please? Okay. Item 3 on the agenda is the minutes of the previous meeting. Now, the previous meeting was 3 weeks ago. Of course, this is a slightly unscheduled planning committee here this evening, simply so that we can deal with 2 of the applications for which we didn't have opportunity at the last meeting on the 6th of February. Members, you've had a record of the minutes of that meeting sent to you electronically. Are you all happy that I'm able to sign those as a true and correct record of the meeting which took place 3 weeks ago here at Lichfield District Council? Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Those are duly signed. We now move, just before we move on to item 4, which is the planning applications, I would like to introduce on my right-hand side, this is Artemis Christofi, and Artemis Christofi is a planning management consultant and is here to guide Lichfield Planning Department through the next few years, perhaps, and she has a wealth of experience, has worked for many local authorities around the country, and Lichfield District Council is indeed very fortunate to have someone as august and as knowledgeable and experienced as Artemis Christofi on my right-hand side. I hope I haven't embarrassed you by giving you such a glowing critique But believe me, members, Artemis is extremely highly regarded within the planning sphere. So, as I say, we're extremely fortunate to have her, and I'd like to extend a very, very warm welcome to Artemis. Thank you, Artemis. Thank you. So, members, we now move on to the main purpose of this evening's planning committee meeting, which is the planning applications. It's item 4 on your agenda, and the very first one that we have this evening is we just have the 2 applications, of course, because these are the ones for which we didn't have an opportunity to decide them and determine them 3 weeks ago. The first one is 22/00242/FUL. It's the Trooper Inn at Watling Street, Wall, Lichfield. And to take us through this application, I think it's Kerry Challoner. Kerry Challoner is the senior planning officer who's going to take us through this application. Kerry, thank you very much indeed. And I think, members, you'll realise that being here, it does give us an opportunity to enjoy very much better visual presentations than in the council chamber. So that's one of the benefits of being here. Kerry, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, members. The first application we're looking at this evening
relates to the Trooper Public Inn in Wall Parish. So we're looking at page 4 of the report pack, and the application is for the retention of 2 doors with Juliet balconies on the western elevation of the building. So just in terms of the location, we've got Watling Street, the Troopers on the corner. I think you're all quite well aware of it. It's quite a local landmark, isn't it? It is within the Wall Conservation Area, and it's also next to the, sorry, I'm just getting used to this pointer, but we're also next to the scheduled ancient monument as well. Just an aerial view there to show that we're in quite a rural area, and you've got some residential properties to the north there. Views that you're probably very much aware of. So this is being reported to you this evening because of objections raised by Wall Parish Council, which have also been reiterated by Councillor Sylvester Hall. And I think we're going to hear from her her speech later on. The objections raised relate to the use of UPVC and in particular the conservation impacts. This is a locally listed building in a conservation area. As I've just said, the building is in a conservation area. It's a non-designated heritage asset. It's not a listed building. It's a locally listed building in the conservation appraisal for the area. The building was extended in 2014, and the window and as the report sets out, the windows that were used in that extension were not discharged formally. However, it's not expedient to pursue these windows because they actually match the what was set out in the application plans at the time. So in terms of the photographs, we've got the front elevation there. These windows were changed in 2021, I believe. Despite the materials being UPVC, because the appearance is the same, no consent was required for this change. So that's referred to in the report. Photograph 2 is just the side of the building. I'm looking for my laptop to do, sorry, bear with me. And then this is Watling Street up here, and you can just see the top of the windows that we're going to be looking at today. This view at the bottom is the back of the extension that was built in 2014, where the windows weren't discharged. However, the window proportions and materials, etc., were all what we would have expected anyway. So photograph 5 shows the 2 patio doors and the Juliet balconies, which are the subject of what you're looking at tonight. That's all we're looking at tonight. Internally, there was changes where the toilets were moved upstairs and the bar area was opened. However, that doesn't require planning permission, so we're not looking at that this evening. We are literally just looking at these two openings here. Photograph 6 just shows, so in the foreground there, you've got the said doors with Juliet balcony, and that's the extension that was in 2014. It's just the plans showing the Juliet balcony again. Juliet balcony, sorry. And then this slide hopefully shows what was there previously before the, this is a retrospective application clearly. This is what was there before, 2 smaller windows, and now you have the patio doors with Juliet balconies. So in conclusion, there's a recommendation for approval. The changes cause no harm to the visual appearance of the building. There's a neutral impact on the historical significance of the building, and there's no impact on archaeology. So all that together is results in a recommendation for approval before you this evening, with a condition to say that the changes have got to be retained as they have been installed. That concludes my presentation.
Thank you very much, Kerry. Thank you. I see that we have the arrival of Councillor Powell. Councillor Powell, thank you very much. I know you were held up in traffic. I know this, I may appear to be slightly pedantic, but because you arrived once the presentation had started, you will not be able to vote or take part in this particular application, Councillor Powell.
Yes, Chair, I do wish to speak to HS2, so I'm just going.
Indeed, yes, there are quite a few things that quite a few of us would like to say to HS2, I'm sure. Thank you very much indeed. But obviously, Councillor Powell, you will be taking part in the second application. Okay, thank you. Members, thank you for that presentation, Kerry. And we now move on to the speakers. And we have 3 speakers this evening. The first one is the objector, that's Pam Salter, and Pam Salter is the clerk to Wall Parish Council. Mrs. Salter, you have 5 minutes, as I'm sure you will be aware. In fact, you will know that all too well because you sat through nearly 4 hours of a meeting only 3 weeks ago. So you know the format. You have 5 minutes, and with 30 seconds still to go, you will be reminded that you must cease speaking once the 5 minutes has elapsed, and your time will start as soon as you begin to speak. Thank you.
Right. Good evening, and thank you, Mr. Chairman. Wall Parish Council is extremely concerned that this is yet another incident of retrospective permission being sought by the owners of the Trooper. In this current instance, the submitted application actually hides the work that has been done to the building, which is in the conservation zone and heritage area. The submitted application is carefully worded to simply seek permission to retain replacement UPVC units. By using a single word doors, it completely fails to declare how many units were changed or by how much. In fact, it clearly states at page 5 that the replacements will be of painted timber in full knowledge that the work had already been completed in UPVC. It also fails to declare that 2 of these new doors, each now with new balconies, are both at least double the size of what were actually windows. A third set of doors affected were a pair of original and decorative wooden ones on the front elevation, which were also replaced with modern patio doors, thereby further affecting the street scene. Again, no separate application was made, nor is the reference to that work within this application. It's claimed on the application form at page 9 that the site cannot be seen from a public highway. This is totally false, as is to the prominent face of the building, which can clearly be seen along Watling Street. It is Wall Parish Council's belief that these major changes to the facade should have been subject to planning permission before work had started, and should at least be fully referred to in detail within the retrospective application. In response to this application, LDC's own conservation urban design team state, and I quote, "UPVC would not usually be appropriate in a conservation area. However, with this particular example, given the harm caused to the building by previous changes, it's not considered that the introduction of the 2 doors with balconies would result in further harm." simple words, they've already caused so much harm during previous works that this extra work makes little difference. That statement highlights the past history of detrimental treatment to the property, but surely that is not good reason to simply permit further harm. You will also note that the third door is not referred to simply because the application form is deceptive by its vagary. Whatever the outcome of this evening's hearing, we believe that it is now time to call a halt to this disregard and manipulation of the planning system. To that end, Wall Parish Council would ask that consideration be given to at least imposing a condition on the trooper that they must give clear and prior notice of any future works or changes to the premises, even if it is believed to fall within permitted development rights, and ideally remove PDR completely. The following information supporting this objection is all taken from the Wall Conservation Area Appraisal and Management Plan. This was approved, adopted and published by LDC in 2018 and relates specifically to development in the conservation area of Wall. Statements include a consistency of approach to determining planning applications is at the centre of a fair system of managing change, especially with the conservation area. Where appropriate, the council will take enforcement action against unauthorised works within the Wall conservation area, and in conservation areas, permitted development rights are restricted where development might be visible from the public realm. I would remind you that these changes to two facades of the trooper are in full public view from the road, contrary to the statement on the application form. Appendix B, Register of Buildings of Special Local Interest, states the list of buildings drawn up by Lichfield District Council are of good design quality and appearance, and the trooper is named within this schedule list. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Mrs. Salter, the objector and clerk to the Wall Parish Council. Now, we also have a representation which has been made by Councillor Janice Sylvester Hall. Councillor Sylvester Hall cannot be here this evening, but she has sent a written representation, and that is going to be read by Christine Lewis on my left-hand side. And Christine, I don't need to tell you the rules of how long you've got. You know them better than I do. Your time starts once you begin speaking. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Before I actually start reading this out, I have asked Artemis to time me, so it is completely fair. Thank you. So, this is the start. Good evening, committee. Please accept my apologies for not attending in person. As I hope has been explained, as the ward member, I was alerted by Wall Parish Council of this application previously coming to committee. In regards to 22/00242/FUL, the Trooper Inn, Watney Street, Wall, Lichfield, I received contact from Wall Parish Council at the time of publication of the application. I will detail the concerns as reported and the Wall Parish Council representative as considered the technical aspects. My first point is to draw the committee's attention to the obvious fact this is a retrospective planning application. A resounding feeling being reported is the distinct lack of regard by the applicant for the planning system and the demands of the heritage status covered within this area. It is locally acknowledged that the Wall Conservation Area Appraisal and Management Plan 2018 is applied. The perception being presented is that is a case of just do it, then ask for forgiveness, being an effective alternative to having to wait for compliance to the appropriate materials, for example, or the evidently time-consuming planning process. There is very much a situation of at least one other occupant within the area who is still waiting years later to implement a similar update to a property because they are consulting LDC planning and respecting the heritage status of the village, specifying more expensive materials as often the case. The question then is, Why don't they just do it and ask for forgiveness after the event also? On a similar note, concerns have been raised with the accuracy of the application, which appears therefore misleading. In particular, number one, on page 5 of the application under type, it should be declared that the existing features were 2 small windows that have been replaced by 2 much larger doors with balconies. Just the word doors is wholly insufficient and suggested is a blatant misrepresentation, implying that it is doors being replaced with doors. Number 2, it goes on to say that painted timber will be replaced with painted timber, yet the work had already been completed using UPVC some 7 months previous to this application to retain its use. Number 3, it also fails to declare, as instructed, the change of colour. And number 4, later in the application on page 9, the question is asked, can the site be seen from a public road, public footpath, bridleway, or other public land? The response is no. This is entirely false, as the building is on the main Watling Street with the completely open aspect and can be clearly seen, not just from the adjacent highway, but from a great distance around and beyond. To conclude, I would ask the committee support the objections of the Parish Council and refuse this planning application, or at very least apply significant measures on the basis of the, number 1, apparent disregard to the planning process in entirety, including potential false representations as recognised by those in the parish, and number 2, apparent disregard for the heritage status of the area, given the size of the alterations, the materials used and the colour. Thank you, colleagues, for your attention and hopefully your support with the valid objections in respect of the application. Councillor Janice Sylvester Hall.
Christine, thank you very much indeed for that. And also thank you to Councillor Sylvester Hall for putting a lot of work into that representation there as the ward councillor. We now have, by means of creating a little bit of balance, we now have the applicant. The applicant is Mr. Craig Chance. And if you'd like to step forward, Mr. Chance, please. And I think you will be familiar with the format and the protocol, but you do have 5 minutes. With 4.5 minutes elapsed, Christine on my left will announce that you have 30 seconds. And at the end of the 5 minutes, if you are still speaking, you need to finish speaking immediately. Your time will start once you commence speaking. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for having me. Is that on, yeah?
I'm here really representing myself. I haven't, the consultant couldn't make it last time, so I came. Firstly, we've never set off to cut corners. I think anything that we do with the trooper is always run through a consultant. We're always looking with colours. We never use any signage, so we've had it for 14 years now. The work was done during the lockdown period in order to give us a more open space within the building, which was something that the trooper didn't have, if anybody who's been in there before. Well, as far as the colour scheme into the windows, nothing's changed. They've always been that colour. We just we did go with a wood grain to as near as we could match. The current windows that are in there are due for replacements as is, because of where it sits on the top of a hill. They're constantly needing paintwork. They're now needing beading replacement. As for the fact of UPVC windows, we done a survey around Wall, of which 57 properties, 46 have UPVC windows. These are all on the same street, Watling Street, and surrounding. We couldn't get to the houses that've got edges or we couldn't see, which gives you an 81% of the houses around that building. And just to finish on that point, the museum itself, which I think is what everybody's aware of, only in the last 2 months has had 4 UPVC white windows replacements. So if it's the case that the trooper has to replace the windows, is that also the case for any other significant buildings within the area? That's really all it was. So thank you very much.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you.
I'd like to thank Mr. Chance there for his his representation. Thank you, sir. And you didn't need to be told that your time was running out, so thank you very much for that. Members, you've had a very good appraisal there of this application. You've seen the report which has been enunciated through Kerry Challoner there, and you've got the visual representations as well to look at. You've heard both sides of this argument from the objector and also from the ward councillor and from the applicant as well. Members, I'm looking across to see whether anyone wishes to make comment or ask questions. We'll go for questions, please. Anybody got questions? Okay, so my Vice Chair, Councillor Baker, please.
Thought somebody better start off proceedings. I haven't really got a question. I think picking up on all the speakers, obviously it's become quite a controversial issue. Visually, perhaps not, but it's a principle of the development and where we've got to. And I picked up the idea from the ward clerk that maybe if this did get approved, that we would consider, assuming the planning officer says we can, actually removing PDRs, in which case we will have an element of control on any future development on this particular property. That's really my comment and question.
Thank you very much indeed. I had written down myself actually perhaps possible removal of PDR as well. Thank you, Councillor Baker. Kerry, did you want to come back on that point, please?
Yeah, I think in terms of conditions, we have to look at whether or not the conditions meet the tests. And as we're looking at 2 of the openings into the building, it's whether or not it's reasonable to remove PD rights for the whole building. And I would suggest it's not reasonable. The building currently has permitted development rights. We're not approving any extensions to it. So I would advise caution against removing PD rights.
Okay, thank you very much indeed, Kerry. I think you've probably taken that comment on board, haven't you, Councillor Baker? Thank you very much. Just before I come on to Councillors Cross and Matthews, can I just ask for an answer to this question, Kerry, please? Page 13, it mentions that there is no Article 4 directive imposed on the conservation area preventing such changes. If either you or Artemis could explain that to us, please.
Yes, so in terms of Article 4 directions, that's something the council can use to prevent small scale changes in the conservation area, such as changing windows. And I believe we have Article 4 directions in Orrewas and in Lichfield Centre. So basically, the Article 4 direction removes a blanket PD right to change windows. Now, that's not the case in Wall, so that's another reason why removing PD rights is not reasonable in this case. And it's probably also why you've got other examples of PVC windows in the area.
Thank you very much indeed. That's a very instructive answer, and I'm sure that the other members have probably found that quite useful. I believe I'm going to bring in the legal officer now. Jane Cotton wishes to comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Just to add to what Kerry said,
Sorry, it was on. Right, thank you, Chair. Just to add what Kerry said, if you're talking about permitted development rights themselves allow certain forms of development. They give a national planning permission with certain forms of development, like small scale alterations to the exterior of a building. But some works can be carried out without planning permission at all. And I think that some of the works in this pub have been done. They don't need planning permission because they don't materially affect the exterior appearance of the building. So even if you had an Article 4 direction or tried to restrict development rights, which Kerry has explained that we wouldn't recommend is reasonable here, you still, if replacement windows looked the same and didn't materially affect the exterior of the building, they're the same size and look the same, you wouldn't need planning permission anyway, you wouldn't need permitted development rights. And that's why some of the windows have been replaced here already, not under permitted development rights, with no control over them whatever, because the council can't control those sorts of works. They're excluded from the requirement for any permission at all. So just to make that clear, permitted development rights don't cover every alteration. Thank you.
Jane Cotton, the legal officer, thank you very much for that. I now have two members who wish to speak. First of all is Councillor Cross. Councillor Cross, please.
Thank you, Chair. What we mustn't forget here is that we are considering retention of 2 doors, which are the 2 doors on this balcony, not the rest of it. And I tend to agree with our planning officer and also with our planning solicitor on the conditions that they've stated. And I propose that we approve this.
Thank you very much indeed.
Councillor Cross, thank you. Councillor Matthews, you wish to come in as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Just a question really regarding the design and impact. It's about harm really. There's 2 issues. There's the use of UPVC as opposed to wood. What's the officer's view on the actual degree of harm? And secondly, I think more significantly, the fact we've got 2 relatively small windows in the picture on the right, turning into 2 fairly large windows stroke doors. For me, that's the biggest issue. I would argue there's possibly some degree of harm there. So what's the officer's view on both the harm for the window type and also the size of the window, which got a significant increase? Thank you.
Councillor Matthews, thank you very much indeed. Before I ask Kerry to answer that question, I'm just going to ask Councillor Chetland now, because I wish you have a question as well, don't you? Thank you.
Just some concern really that the design team stated that it isn't causing too much harm because it's already been harmed too much in the past, which I think is a bit of a strange argument. That's just an observation. My only question is, in relation to respective applications, have there been any others during the 14 years? We're talking about permitted developments. On one instance, it wouldn't be right, but have there been any other respective applications in relation to this property? Okay.
Thank you, Councillor Chetland. Kerry, if you'd like to answer those points, but I think that's something which 1 or 2 of us raised our eyebrows, was the fact that the amount of harm now is almost minimised because there has been previous harm. That argument is something which I think probably doesn't rest terribly easily with 1 or 2, and I can understand the reasons why, but that has been clearly enunciated by the planning officer. Thank you. Kerry, if you'd like to come back and answer those points, please.
So in terms of the harm, we're saying that there's no, in terms of the harm to the building as it stands, there's no harm with the addition of them two windows. UPVC, although it's frowned upon in terms of conservation, it's not unacceptable, especially as time's gone on. UPVC has got much better and you get much better quality versions of it these days. In terms of the alterations to the building has been altered. Trying to find the photographs again of the front. So the building has been altered over a long period of time, not just the period of time that the applicant has owned the premises. The changes that have been made, these windows in the front, they look exactly the same as the windows that were in for quite a number of years, but they've been painted in different colours and so on. They are not the original windows that would have been in that building. And a lot of the changes also predate the extra protection that the building was given when it was popped into the conservation area appraisal and given this locally listed sort of status. So in terms of the harm, yes, it is, it is frustrating when you get a retrospective application. However, a lot of the works that have been carried out as set out in the report, do not require planning permission. They benefit from permitted development, such as the internal changes and so on. So in terms of the harm, as it stands at the moment, we consider that there's no harm to the appearance of the building, and that's why we're supporting the proposals.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed, Kerry. Any other questions at all? Yes, indeed. So Councillor Birch, please, then Councillor Humphreys.
Thank you, Chair. It's not really a question as such. I'm not sure there's that much relevance to the cumulative impact over time. I think we're here to consider the application as the building was before, and then after the doors have been added, not what happened years ago leading up to it, if I'm honest. So I'm not concerned about the cumulative impact over time. I think we're just looking at this as the relevance. On that basis, I agree with Councillor Cross, and I'd second his moving of the recommendations.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you. And then Councillor Humphreys, you wish to come in, then we're going to go, then we're going to go to the vote. Then we'll go to the vote.
Having been on planning for nearly 20 years, in my humble opinion, it looks better now than it did before.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. Well, that's why we have a cross section of members so that we can get a variety of views, and we very much welcome the diversity of views. And absolutely, if I may just say that I did visit this site just before the last meeting 3 weeks ago. I looked at it, and in my humble opinion, I didn't have too many issues with it either. But that is my own personal opinion. Members, it has been proposed for approval by Councillor Cross, and that's been seconded by Councillor Birch. That is, of course, in line with the planning officer's recommendation and conclusion at the end of your report. Could I please have a show of hands for those who wish to support this application for approval, please? I think that's 7. Is that 7? And can we have those? Thank you. That's 7. Those against, please. I think that's 7. 1 against. Any abstentions? Thank you very much indeed. Members, by a vote of 7 to 1, that has been approved by this planning committee. Thank you very much indeed. So I can declare that 22/00242/FUL, the trooper at war, has received its planning permission. Thank you very much indeed for your time, members. And I'd also like to thank all the speakers as well, the 3 speakers who participated in that application. Thank you.
Sorry,
Oh, Councillor Humphries, I do beg your pardon.
Yes, Kevin, just before we take on 2201179, the applicant here, I believe, is Mr. A. Humphreys, is no relation and is
Right, thank you very much indeed. Councillor Humphreys, thank you very much indeed. I think that's actually quite an important point to make, that there is absolutely no connection, no familial connection whatsoever. Thank you very much indeed. So, members, we now move on to the second application of the evening, and this is 22/01179/FUL. It's 121 Highfields Road, Chasetown. And to take us through this application, I think it is none other than Kerry Challoner again. Kerry, thank you very much indeed. If you'd like to take us through this report, please. Thank you.
Yes, of course. Thank you, Chair. So next on the agenda this evening is page 14 onwards, and we're looking at the land to the rear of 121 and 123 Highfields Road, Chasetown in Burnwood. The proposal is for the erection of 1 bungalow, and it's been reported to you this evening because of a call-in from Councillor Sylvester Hall, as reported in the supplementary paper this afternoon, and objections from Hammerwich Parish Council. The main objections relate to parking, the impacts on the character of the area, backland development, the principle of backland development in this location, and access to bus services. So if I just run through the site for you, the site is, like I say, to the rear of 121 and 123 Highfields Road. So they front onto Highfields Road, which is down here. And then, but the site itself and the proposals would actually front onto a cul-de-sac at the rear, which is Oakfield Close. The aerial view there just shows the area is residential in character. And I'd also, so here's Oakfield Close down here with the front of the site. And I'd also point out that there are other forms of backland development in the locality. Just run through some photographs. So this is a view from Oakfield Close. So this is basically the frontage of the site here. And photograph 2 is a property in Oakfield Close just to the side of the site. This view is probably the best one you're going to get of the overall site area. So we're looking up Oakfield Close there. So the proposed bungalow would sit here, fronting this way. Note the turning head, and also that's the back of the properties 121 and 123. There's some reference made in the report and within the objections raised to the presence of a tree, and that was also mentioned in the supplementary paper today as well. So that's the tree that we're talking about there. This is just a view up the garden of 121. And then a view from the back of the site towards the sort of dormer bungalows in Oakfield Close. So turning to the proposals, it's a bungalow, single story. We've recommended removal of permitted development rights. There would be 2 bedrooms. There is an extra room shown as a small bedroom stroke study. But in terms of the national space standards, it wouldn't meet the national space standards for a bedroom. So we are looking at that as more of a study, that third room as set out on the plans. We've got 2 car parking spaces. So the site is accessed from the front. You've got 2 car parking spaces. We've got landscaping and we've got biodiversity enhancement, shown on the plans in forms of bat and bird boxes. In terms of the principle of the development, we're in a residential location already. In terms of the local plan strategy, that directs new houses to sustainable locations such as this. And also policy H1 of the Hammerwich neighbourhood plan supports new small scale infill development. So in terms of the conclusion, it is recommended for approval before you this evening, and we've got a number of conditions which are also set out in the report. And that concludes my presentation.
Kerry, thank you very much indeed for that. And so that now brings me on to the 2 speakers we have this evening. The first one is Councillor Dave King. Councillor Dave King is the Hammerwich Parish Council representative and is the objector. We also have representation once again from Councillor Sylvester Hall, the ward councillor, and once again we have a written representation which will be read by Christine Lewis, and that will follow Councillor Dave King's presentation. Councillor King, I do apologise. Councillor King, you have 5 minutes. You'll know the protocol very well by now. With 30 seconds to go, you will be reminded. Thank you very much.
I am Vice Chair of Hammerwich Parish Council, and I represent the Triangle Ward where the application is located. 2 neighbours on Highfields Road, with the assistance of a remote developer, PlanApp, have put together an application to build a bungalow in half of their joint back gardens. The bungalow would not have an access onto Highfields Road, but would require a new access directly into the turning area, specifically designed as part of Oakfield Close. There have been 8 written objections from residents, with several others complaining by contacting me personally. The Hammerwich Parish Council submission is objects strongly, stating the application conflicts with policy H2 housing development design, which I quote, "New development shall be expected to 1, complement the adjoining land use," which it doesn't. Number 2, have good access to sustainable forms of transport, which it doesn't. Item 10, relate well to surrounding land and buildings in style, scale and mass, which it doesn't. And 13, provide sufficient off-road parking for residents and other visitors, which there isn't any. Hammerwich Parish Council also says it conflicts with National Planning Policy Framework, paragraph 142D, which I quote, "Development should consider D, the desirability of maintaining an area's prevailing character and setting, including residential gardens." Another recent application in the parish of Hammerwich in December 2022, Pingle Lane, Hammerwich, erection of a residential property in the garden. That was refused by Lichfield District Council in December 22. And the reasons for refusal, number one, access and parking provision in respect of core policy 5, and item 2 will be detrimental to the character and appearance of the surrounding street scene. Also, land to the rear of 165 Highfields Road, historically, several applications have been made to build in this rear garden. They have always been refused by LDC on several grounds. The main reason is, and I quote, the proposed form of backland development would detract from the character and appearance of the surrounding area. The decisions have gone to appeal twice. Both appeals have been dismissed by the planning inspectorate. Reasons: the lawful use of this land is garden, and the effect of the proposed development on the living conditions and of the character and appearance of the surrounding area. Those are two. LDC recommendation approve. I quote under the heading determining issues, subtitle 1, policy and principal development. 1.1, section 38 refers to the Hammerwich local plan carrying full material weight. 1.2, Burntwood is one of the areas LDC will direct most of its growth to, with Burntwood being categorized as other large centre. This application is in Hammerwich, not Burntwood. 1.3, policy H1 of the Hammerwich neighbourhood plan states that new small-scale infill housing will be supported. Infill housing. There is some confusion here. The application is in Hammerwich, not Burntwood or Lichfield. The current Hammerwich local plan, 2018 to 2040, does not promise to support development in the Triangle Ward. The only reference is, and I quote, in the Triangle Ward, new development will have, you use the word have, contributed to enhancing the area. Have being the operative word, past tense. And I give examples. Not long ago, the Triangle Public House was demolished and 7 new houses built on site. The old Hammerwich Hospital was demolished with 50 new dwellings being built on the
30
site.
seconds remaining.
The old Hammerwich Women's Institute car park was developed with 4 new houses being built on the site. And today, a development over Overton Lane is near completion. The Hammerwich local plan does say it will accept moderate infill. Infill is taken to mean a natural gap in the street scene, not building in somebody's back garden. Hammerwich local plan is therefore no mention to support bringing backland development or garden grabbing as it's called. On the contrary, previously such applications have been refused by LDC planning. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Councillor King, for that. I think you just about managed to get that all into your 5 minutes as well. So thank you. I now will call upon Christine Lewis on my left-hand side, who will once again read the submission from the ward councillor, once again, Councillor Sylvester Hall. You have up to 10 minutes, of course, and I think in this case, Artemis once again will be the timekeeper. Christine, your time starts when you're ready. Thank you.
Good evening, committee. Please accept my apologies for not attending in person this evening. To begin, I need to bring to your collective attention that as the ward member who called this into the planning committee, I was not originally advised of this application being brought to committee, as should have happened by planning officers. It was instead brought to my attention by the respective parish councils. When this application 22/01179/FUL was published, I received contact from a number of concerned neighbours, as well as Hammerwich Parish Council, which resulted in me submitting a calling, for which the confirmation receipt was sent from planning on the 27th of the 8th, 2022. One such resident has contacted me to say that the email of the letter alerting themselves to this application being on the committee's agenda had gone into their spam folder and had been missed. As no posted version was received either, this could have been missed. This could have missed that objective too, as well as others. There are sound reasons which have clearly been explained by the parish representative this evening to cite why this is an inappropriate development in the parish of Hammerwich. And that is my first point. There may be some confusion, it seems, regarding the location of this property, given the emphasis on Chasetown in the application's address. This is very much in the parish of Hammerwich and therefore covered by the Hammerwich Neighbourhood Plan 2021. In response to the call-in and my associated comments regarding very similar applications involving predominantly backland development, which has been refused, a request was made from the officer to be supplied details of these, and they were subsequently emailed to the officer and covered some 7 other applications on this specific road alone. My overriding fear is that whilst this is materially wrong development for reasons I and the parish councillor will detail, it will literally open the floodgates to these applications which have been previously refused, including on appeal and further appeal, or indeed withdrawn in response to significant objections, as well as more than likely new applications. I would also add, it seems there could be a disturbing over-reliance now on viewing a site by the means of Google Maps. Actually, visiting a site is essential to obtain a more accurate sense of space and size. Elements such as the extent to which there are drop curves, for example, in Oakfield Close, and the lack of drains too, are all better appreciated when visiting rather than doing such lacking deck research. While some may consider the access to this property beneficial, as it does not run between 2 properties, what it does in fact is impose on a significant number of more neighbours who will be adversely impacted by the new access appearing in a road designed to serve the existing residents. To be clear, I am all for supporting small developers in business, but that has to be the right development in the right place. In my opinion, also that of a number of the neighbours, this is not. From the information I have been supplied from concerned residents and the parish, I wish the committee to consider: number 1, street scene. Concerns are raised for reference to the 2-metre high fencing surrounding the plot, when the boundary is in fact tall, mature hedging, which I am informed is not owned by the applicant. Any potential removal of this section of hedging to be replaced with fencing would not then be in keeping with the rest of the adjoining area. Concerns are also raised for the inclusion of a chimney on the floor plan, which is inconsistent with the drawings, and there's incorrect placing of a significant tree on the plans. Number 2, highways. Parking. Whilst there have been a number of prerequisite conditions regarding highways, this is a key aspect which needs to be fully appreciated by visiting the site. It is readily acknowledged that parking complaints are one of the top triggers for neighbour disagreements and antisocial behaviour. The removal of the existing limited on-street parking there will present potential for this, more so for the access of service vehicles whilst the development is underway. Drains. I am concerned with the scant detail regarding drainage. Residents had previously raised this as a concern, and having visited the site myself, noted there is no visible drains on Oakfield Close. The difficulties of flooding from the additional surface water runoff and lack of a system to remove this is very concerning. I think it prudent to point out, as I do residents, that whilst I am not a planner, there are questions which should be explored further, as we can see their detriments were not sufficiently considered elsewhere in the ward, which now presents significant challenges. There are legitimate questions which need a response. Also, I am currently finding it difficult to appreciate that these aspects have been fully considered, given that the call-in made in August 2022 and then many subsequent communications between myself and the officer was not referred to. There appears some haste and therefore system failings, which would naturally then lead me to question the validity of the judgment arrived at the support of this application. To conclude, this location is in the parish of Hammerwich. Questions and concerns regarding detrimental impact on the street scene, road access, not being satisfied, even with many conditions. From previous experience, these are not likely to be followed or indeed enforced. Lack of details regarding drainage. Evidence of previously refused applications, including several of this specific road, as backland development itself as well as others in the wider parish, will undoubtedly be resubmitted. Finally, in the past few days, I have been notified by a resident in this vicinity that clearing works have already commenced, whilst many matters, including that of planning permission, are to be established. Thank you, colleagues, for your attention on this matter, and hopefully your support in refusing this application. Councillor Janice Sylvester Hall.
Christine, thank you very much indeed. Thank you. I bet you're ready for a drink of water after that, aren't you? Thank you. Members, there you are then. You've had the thoughts and the very well structured arguments there from both the objector and the ward councillor as well. You've also seen the report, which has been effectively and comprehensively dealt with by the planning officer, Kerry Challoner. And so I'm now inviting questions or comments from members, please. I see we have several. Okay, I'm going to start off with Councillor Powell. Councillor Powell, please.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. We spent a lot of time and effort getting the parish councils in the area to submit their neighbourhood plans. They spent hours and hours on them, a lot of time, a lot of money, a lot of effort from the district council supporting them. We really ought to take more notice of it. And indeed, I'm minded to one of the reports he had back from one of the inspectors recently on an application where he made note of the fact that we weren't really listening to the neighbourhood plan as well as we should be. So I think as the neighbourhood plan covers for this and is mentioned about backfill and all the rest of it, should be taken into account. And probably we should say nay to this one. But there we go. We'll see what anybody else has got to say.
Councillor Powell, thank you very much. I know we have several now wishing to speak. I'm going to go to Councillor Salter next, then we have Councillor Matthews, Councillor Evans and Councillor Cross. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Yes, concurring with Councillor Powell there, that we are, I think, a little lax occasionally in following neighbourhood plans. They are approved by District Council and, of course, tiers well above us from the inspectorate. We've heard from Councillor King this evening that this application does breach several of the local neighbourhood plan regulations, rules, policies, whatever you want to call them. There's also the consistency of precedent that we need to consider on this. There have been previous applications refused, and that refusal upheld as appeal. So again, like Councillor Powell, I think it's a no from me at the moment. Thank you.
Councillor Salter, thank you very much indeed. I now move on to Councillor Matthews, please.
Thank you, Chair. I'm slightly intrigued and somewhat puzzled with this application. We are used to, in planning committee, receiving applications for garden development. And I can recall some in recently in Orwis and the likes. This is unusual because instead of developing the gardens off Highfield, we're going to go in to the rear of Oatfield. And obviously this is probably a question for the legal people as well. I question the legality, whether there's any easement there. The people who own these properties in Highfield will own their land, but my question is, and I'm sure the legal people will have a view on it, and whether it's not a planning consideration is obviously relevant. The fact it's being accessed from a separate road puzzles me, and I've never seen one like this before. We have seen individual property rear garden. This is unusual. We've got two properties with a shared garden, but unusually the access is to the rear. You're probably going to tell me it's a legal matter and it's totally separate to planning, but I just want clarification on that point. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Matthews. I think I'm going to ask Kerry to come back on questions so far, if you would please, Kerry. Then we'll move on to Councillors Evans and Cross shortly.
So in terms of the questions, I don't recall there's been very many questions so far, but I would just point out, yes, this is acknowledge that it is in Hammerwich. It clearly says in the report that it's within Hammerwich Parish, and we've also considered Hammerwich Neighbourhood Plan. That's fully referred to. The policies are fully referred to in the body of the report, in particular policy H1, and also the design policies H2 has also been mentioned. In terms of the access off Oatfield Road, yes, it's not unusual to have, but each site needs to be looked at on its own merits, and each site obviously needs an access. Whether that access comes off the frontage, as in the case further up here with these backland developments, or whether it comes off an access at the back, we still have to look at it in the same way. Highways have looked at this, and they're happy with this access being here. They have also pointed out that this is a turning head, so we're not losing any parking, because that's not actually somewhere that should be parked on anyway.
Kerry, thank you very much indeed. Thank you. I'll now turn then to Councillor Evans and then subsequently Councillor Cross, please.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I've heard a number of comments made about this application and about other applications that have or have not been accepted. But we're always told, as we've just been told, but I'll say it again, that each application is taken on its own merit. So that is important to remember. I was going to ask about the turning head, because I know that often people do park their cars in the turning head places, which can cause problems. But on the other hand, as this is a 2-bedroom bungalow, I assume that adequate parking is off on the actual site. So that should be adhered to. Whether it will be or not is another matter. The fact that it goes off Oatfield Close, which we've been told as well, which is different to the backland development just a bit further up, and therefore the access is there. But can I ask, and I don't know whether it's relevant or not, is this an adopted road or not? Because sometimes that can cause problems when people are responsible for their own roads. And a lot of roads now, I'm not sure when these bungalows were built, but it is a bungalow which is in keeping with what is around there at the moment. So I think that is another consideration. We're not being asked to put a house at the bottom there. So I think there are a number of issues that I'd like the answer to before, and also about the drainage, because although we're told that the drainage is okay, and Severn Trent has said that as well, I just need clarification on that, because we were told by when we had the objector that there weren't adequate drains there.
Councillor Evans, excuse me, Councillor Evans, thank you very much indeed for that. If I can just clarify with the planning officer, I think I read somewhere that there are 2 off-road parking spaces on this. Yes, so provision is made for 2 parking spaces off-road. Thank you very much. And what, sorry?
I just wanted clarification.
Yes, indeed. Thank you very much indeed, Councillor Evans. Councillor Cross, please.
Thank you, Chair. I personally don't like this application, but I find it difficult to see a reason why we could refuse it. We've had all our consultees, our professional consultees, that's had no objections to it, including Severn Trent and Stuffs County Highways. I believe there are problems with the drainage, but is that for us to consider or make any decisions on? I don't think so. I think that needs to be dealt with Severn Trent, who have in the consultee said there's not a problem, but maybe that needs to be addressed by the residents further with them. This is not an unusual application. I live in Fradley and Orawas, and we've got 1 or 2 that's very similar like this, that's been done recently. In fact, we just had an appeal only a couple of weeks ago where they want a similar sort of access on a cul-de-sac like this, going into a field to build over 100 houses, which looks possible is going to be accepted by the inspector. So I cannot find a reason to reject this, although I'm not that happy with it. And I propose that we accept it.
Councillor Cross, thank you very much indeed. So that's Councillor Cross there is proposing approval for this application. Do we have anyone wishing to second that at the moment? Councillor Chetland, you're willing to second. So Councillor.
Councillor Humphreys wants to come in, and then we just need to
Indeed.
check if there's any other proposals we can.
Thank you very much. So that's seconded by Councillor Chetland. And Councillor Humphreys, you wish to come in as well, don't you?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. For something like 27 years, I lived within a couple of 100 yards off Lawnswood Avenue. This is rather, it's an optical illusion, this. To get a refuse vehicle, they reverse down there and it is curb to curb. You'll find there's no parking down there. Every house on the left has got a short drive. There's only a small car and that's the length of the drive. The houses on the right are fairly steep drive. You'll find nothing right. They all park in the Hammerwich, in the Hammerhead. And that is actually shown there. Like Councillor Cross, I would like to refuse this, but I honestly cannot find anything apart from parking congestion, overdevelopment, and I just can't find in planning any reason to propose refusal, so I shall abstain. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor Humphreys. And just, I think, clarification, if we may, from Kerry, just on the drainage issue. Councillor Evans was asking about the drainage, I think, weren't you? And if we can just have an answer on that, please, if you would, because that has been mentioned by, I think, 2 or 3 members as well.
It has. It was mentioned also in the supplementary this afternoon with the extra representations from a neighbouring resident. In terms of the drainage, Severn Trent have been consulted and they are happy that it won't have a big impact on the system, and they're happy with what's being proposed. The drainage would of course be covered by building regulations, so they would need to get the necessary building regulations before they can start building this effectively. There was a question as well, just coming back to Councillor Evans. It is an adopted highway, so it is within Highways control. Highways have raised no objections to this proposal. So in terms of presenting a reason for refusal, well, as we've set out in the report, we consider it to be acceptable. But your comments are noted.
Thank you very much, Kerry. And just before we go to the vote, I think Councillor Salter wishes to come in quickly.
Thank you, Chair. Just a quick question really on clarification between infill and backland. We've heard the neighbourhood plan accepts infill, but not backland. This is backland. Can we have a little bit of clarity on the difference?
Okay. So it's almost as though we're talking semantics here, aren't we? When is it backland development? When is it infill? Yes, if you could just perhaps give some clarification on that, please, Kerry. Or I might even ask Artemis to come in on that as well. Whichever one of you wishes to address that question, please.
No, that's fine. I think, like we say, that classic, each application's on its own merits. This one, I think you'd struggle to argue either way, to be honest. Is it infill? Is it backland? Yes, it's definitely backland development, but I wouldn't want to stand up and say that it's not infill either in between number 5 and 6.
I think, Kerry, as I suggested just a moment ago, we're almost talking semantics, aren't we? When is it infill and when is it backland development? It's one that we could talk about for the next 3 hours. But we've already set a precedent 3 weeks ago, and I certainly don't want to go there again this evening. Members, I think you've all had an opportunity to comment and to ask your questions of the planning officer there. We've heard the arguments being put forward there by Councillor King and also Councillor Sylvester Hall's views on this as well. But after all of that, we have had a proposal from Councillor Cross for approval of this application, and that has been also seconded by Councillor Chetland, which of course is in line with the planning officer's conclusion to the report. Members, could I please have a show of hands, those of you who wish to approve this application, please? That's 8, isn't it? Yeah, it's 8. And do we have any against, please? Any abstentions? And 2 abstentions. Thank you very much. Members, by a vote of 8-2, well, with 2 abstentions, and 8-4, I can tell you that application 22/01179/FUL has been approved by this planning committee here at Lichfield District Council. We have 2 applications on the agenda, and I can report that at the incredibly early hour of 11 minutes past 7, we have managed to conclude this meeting. I say the incredibly early hour, I am speaking in relative terms, of course, based upon the precedent set 3 weeks ago. Members, I'd like to thank you very much indeed for attending. I'd like to thank the speakers as well for their attendance this evening. And that, ladies and gentlemen, members, concludes this meeting, as I say, at 11 minutes past 7. For those of you who've been watching online, I'd like to thank you for participating, and we look forward to seeing you in only 1 week's time when we reconvene for another planning committee on the 6th of March. I'd like to thank all the officers connected with this evening's meeting as well. And with that, I bid you all good night. Thank you.